Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum viewers. I'm your host S.M. Hali with another edition of Defense and Diplomacy. India is amassing weapons way beyond its legitimate needs, and one of its aspirations is to achieve the nuclear triad, that is delivery systems and weapon platform from both the air, sea, as well as, in addition, the subsurface. And in this regard, it has achieved the Arihant, which is an indigenously developed nuclear-powered submarine, and it has acquired nuclear-powered submarines on lease from Russia. To discuss its threat, we are honored to have in our studio today Vice Admiral Ahmad Tasneem Sitara-e-Jurat with Par. And viewers, for those of you who are not aware, the Admiral has the unique distinction of being the first person to have achieved a kill from a submarine, and this when he was commanding the Pakistan naval submarine Hangor on the 9th of December 1971, when he successfully targeted the Indian anti-submarine frigate, the INS Kukri, which caused 200 lives to be lost. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Our other participant is Advocate Tariq Pirzada, who has a keen eye on the naval developments. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, just for the sake of our viewers, if you could briefly tell us what are the advantages of a nuclear-powered submarine over a conventional submarine?
Well, in simple terms, it is the duration and the stamina to stay at sea which almost becomes infinite. It increases manifold in case of a nuclear submarine. Conventional submarine is supposed to come up 15 to 17% of the time to charge its batteries by what we call snorkeling. But nuclear submarine doesn't have to do this, so can stay subject to human stamina almost unlimited underwater.
I see, sir. So with that brief addition to our knowledge, Advocate, we had done a program earlier in 2010 when the Arihant had just been completed and was commencing its sea trials. And now I believe it's about to complete them and is likely to be inducted by the Indian Navy. How do you see this threat?
Major threat. A major threat realized, and the Indians are making a great headway at the expense of Pakistan's sovereignty in the Indian Ocean. That is point number one. A nuclear triad, be it airborne nuclear assets of a country, be it the land-based nuclear assets of a country, or be it the subsurface submarine-based weapon systems that can, these three things actually constitute what is called a nuclear triad. India, with the acquisition of a leased submarine called Aquila from Russia, has entered the very limited group of those countries that have the capability of completing, at least initially completing, a triad. By the end of this year, India's indigenous nuclear power submarine will be actually operational also. Even if it is not operational by the end of the year, it will be operational in the few months after that. Third point, since India has completed initially its nuclear triad, where is the threat coming from for which India needs this nuclear triad? In the Indian Ocean. This is in addition to about 18 conventional submarines, although some of them will be retired, but 18, India already has a flotilla of almost 18 conventional submarines.
But with the addition of the Aquila class, as well as its three, indigenously developed, it's likely to have 5 to 6. Would you like to add something to this?
Yes. I think, according to the interpretation and intelligence, it is fair to assume that 2020, India will have around 24 conventional submarines, that means deployable about 2018 to 20. And she would have around 3 to 5 nuclear submarines, because indigenous construction sometimes is suffering from delays, etc. But it will be, I think, good intelligent guess she would have 3 to 5 nuclear submarines, but SSN, not the ballistic. They are working towards that. These nuclear submarines would be able to stay of course, indefinitely at sea, subject to human stamina, and they'll be able to fire long-range torpedoes and also short-range surface-to-surface missiles. So there is a setup. Now, this being so, many people have asked me, what should be the target for our submarine force? So I have always said that you need 5 to 6 submarines initially to cover their coast, main their areas and where their bases are, and you need another 3 or so to deploy them sea lines of communication to disrupt their oil supplies from the Gulf or from Suez, etc. So let's say deployment in North Arabian Sea. So Pakistan needs 9 operational submarines, which means you should have 12 to have operational number of 9 submarines.
Right, sir. So, Advocate Tariq Pirzada, you're talking about the Akula class. Now, the Akula class, while the Indians were on board and trials were taking place, in 2008, off the Sea of Japan, the first Akula met with an accident in which 21 personnel died. But still, India has completed its sea trials, and it is likely to be handed over to the Indians this very month, in the next day or so. So how do you look at?
Well, as far as the technological disasters are concerned, Akula has faced that, disaster. So that threat, from the technological point of view in the Indian Ocean next to Pakistan, is very real also. It can happen again, number one. Number two, assuming that everything goes well, let's see what is the direction of the India's amassing its naval forces, and especially the nuclear power. Look, China is too far.
No, it's simple. It wants to become a blue water navy, and it has.
I just want to say, China is too far, too big to be handled by India in any combat situation. There is no need for them to go that route. So these are the two goals. Pakistan is the most immediate country that they want to dominate. They want to dominate Indian Ocean very clearly. They want to dictate all the countries, littoral countries along the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea, because they know there is no other navy in the region. This is a very interesting thing that can come up and counter them. The Iranians do have a small fleet of 3, conventional submarines, but they are facing major problems, and the Iranian Navy is still not.
If you hold that thought, the Admiral wants to make a contribution.
Yes, I think the possession of nuclear submarines, if I may say, it is a strategic weapon, and it is extension of your foreign policy to exert your power in the region. Pakistan, as I understand, has no such ambition, but we being in the region, it will be unfair and wrong to say that we are not concerned. But there are other countries like Australia, like Indonesia, other regional country, Malaysia, who I'm sure feel concerned. Now, talking about Australia and nuclear-free Indian Ocean, you would recall that late 60s or early 70s, Indian stance was to have a nuclear-free Indian Ocean. And now, as we proved with our friend from India in the last program,
Commodore C. Udaya Bhaskar, he admitted.
Yes, they said they've changed. So in politics, there's no sort of high moral ground. Like Australia, selling uranium to India, but if it comes to us, they are high moral ground, you see. So Australia also will make no noise under American pressures, my own opinion. But if Indonesia would have a nuclear submarine, you will see that Australia will make noise about it. So concern is there, but I mean, in the regional ambition, etc., I think Pakistan is not part of it, but it's concerned because it's in the region. Yes.
Right. Sure.
There are actually, in my judgment, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree with me, that if you look at the way the Americans are using their nuclear power in the Indian Ocean, they're not firing nuclear missiles, but they're using the same subs for conventional purposes, firing, Tomahawk cruise missiles with 1,500 ranges, firing into Somalia, firing into Sudan, firing into any country that in Iraq, everywhere they used it. So if we have a nuclear powered sub, as the Admiral said, we have a subsurface endurance of a naval power for a very long time. Number two, it does create a very strong retaliatory capability for a country like Pakistan, which has a very limited underwater navy at the present time.
And not just that.
And let me just quickly finish.
The point you make, cover is the same. It adds to the assured second strike capability.
Absolutely. This is what I was saying, that once you have a nuclear power submarine, you have a subsurface second strike capability, and that creates a very powerful deterrence. As we were discussing a minute earlier, the basic purpose of these strategic weapons is to create deterrence. If India has it, there is, in my judgment, I'm very simple, because there are dual purposes that will be served with the acquisition of a nuclear power submarine. Pakistan cannot allocate a lot of funds to maintain a very large conventional navy. So to be selective, I would go for at least a couple of nuclear power submarines, in my judgment. This is something that has to be seriously concerned, because it will provide both the conventional as well as nuclear purpose, strategic as well as non-strategic purpose.
Right. Admiral, the advocate talked about the US. And if you recall, sir, during the height of the Cold War, the Soviet Union was able to neutralize the vast fleet of the United States as a blue water navy. How did it achieve, and do we have a lesson from it, sir?
Yes. I think one always learns lesson from the history. If you go for 50 years ago, certainly the period before Admiral Gorshkov was given all the mandate to build a Soviet blue water navy, how did the Soviets neutralize the American blue water navy, which was right in conflict with their aims and objectives in the various regions in the world? Why? By having a submarine force. At that time, those of us who were there would recall that Soviet Union had the largest submarine force in the world at that time. So this is point one. And later on, they built up their own fleet to also match it. So you have a point, and I agree with you, that if you cannot match ship for ship, the only way to do it, and if you want to learn from history, is to have a potent submarine arm to neutralize a larger adversary which possesses a larger naval force.
Right, sir. But I would like to take advantage of your presence here. We have the AIP, the air and propulsion. So how does that help us till such time that I do not know, it is for the planners to decide whether we need a nuclear sub or not?
Well, air independent propulsion system, as you mentioned, it is not the nuclear, but it is definitely much better than. Now, in simple terms, if a conventional submarines would snorkel between 15 to 20% to top up its batteries, per 24 hours, this one is much less, 1 to 2%. So it is a fast improvement, and it is nearer to staying almost indefinitely. It's just near. It's a very good step, and they've done well, and it is the next step to the nuclear. Now, going to our submarine force, which you'd asked earlier, my only recommendation would be that rather than going to the target which I have said earlier, that the 4 definitions you commissioned years ago, and I've been coming on your program for many years and just been saying the same thing, and I repeat again, and hopefully I'm not on the next program repeating the same thing, that at least expedite their replacement. It is not our job to say which submarine, which is the source, etc. That is the job of naval staff. But at least the government should expedite, along with naval headquarters, to have the acquisition of this replacement.
Right. So, Advocate, having evaluated the threat from the Indian nuclear submarines, what should be Pakistan's stance?
First, a quick unfinished job. We have had the opportunity of having these AIP, air independent submarines. The Israelis have set the example. There's no harm in following it. They got their submarines from Germany. We can get them from anywhere, as Admiral said. We don't have to mention that. But the reality is we need to deploy Babur SLCM, sub-launch cruise missile. We have to complete its development, its deployment, and its actual use in the Indian Ocean, so we can enter the transient phase. The transient phase, that is the phase between a conventional submarine and a full-blown SSBN or a nuclear attack submarine. Because we are we still are far away from the target. I think it's time that we expedite the process of deploying Babur SLCM on our AIP submarines so we can fill this gap in the meantime and then move on to the time period. Because if we don't do that, we'll be far from completing if we decide to go nuclear. Because I don't know if we are doing it or not.
Well, that's a policy decision
that has to
let
be
the
made by
government
the
take.
government.
But Admiral, sir, the missiles he mentioned, but the Indians, they are having the Russian club class, they have the Sagarika, and they're also trying to develop, again with the help of Moscow, BrahMos, which is been named after Brahmaputra and Moscow, the submarine version. So what should be Pakistan's development? One, he mentioned the Babur should be made submarine deliverable. What is your opinion, sir?
So I think without taking the names, I think the ultimate defense for any country lies the capability to fire the weapons three-dimensionally. That means from air platform, some subsurface platform, and from surface platform, meaning from either ashore or from the
That's the word triad.
Yeah, exactly. I said three-dimensional. That is the ultimate. And I'm sure that our planners must be working, and I'm sure they are working towards this, and we must have had some success in this, because this is the ultimate, because this is, frankly, in simple term, it gives you a assured capability to launch second time or the third time in case. So this is what it is, and this is what has been going on for many years. This is what the United States did, and this is what the Soviet Union did, this is what the China is doing, and this is what naturally the Indian is doing. And this is what we should do.
And basically, it adds to our deterrence capability, is that right?
It does actually three things. It gives you defense, there is a second strike capability. It gives you technology, opens new vistas in the world of technology, and we can use it in many other fields. And number three, of course, your political status around the world, which is a reality in our world. You live by the perception of the reality that you have. If you don't have the reality, there is no perception you can create about yourself. All the three things constitute a powerful deterrent. I did not separate any of the three of them. I'm combining all three of them to constitute a very powerful deterrence. Let's see if our planners can go that route. But I have one more thing to say as far as the finances are concerned. Pakistan Navy, I am a great fan of Navy. As a civilian, I tell you one thing. I've never met any, serving person in the country. The only person that I really know is my great favorite admiral sitting next to me. So, having said that, Pakistan Navy needs some extra greater allocations of fund for major acquisitions, and the other services need to cooperate. And the government of Pakistan, even if they are loans or debts, credits, whatever that we have to manage, we have to go that. Let me repeat one more thing. I always said in many programs that the U.S. Defense Secretary, a lot of people would not like his name mentioned, but he used to make a great point. He said, I hate to use money on military, issues, defense, and all that. He said, but give me a way to protect my freedom. If we can find any other way to protect my freedom, I will give up all the military spending. But that is the only thing that we have to, swallow, which is spend on the liberty that we protect with military, means.
Right, sir. So, as a final comment, to raise the morale of the people of Pakistan, let us not be concerned with the threat it is posing, but let's talk about your final comments on Pakistan.
Well, I've always said that Pakistan Navy Submarine Service and the Navy generally, we always had a qualitative edge, and the submarine service traditionally from 65 onward has built on experience, etc. Although I left the submarine service long time ago, but I am 200% sure that it is being manned and run by better people and more professional, same as our air arm and same as our surface arm. We've just inducted 4 modern ships, but as Mr. Pirzada has said, this is not sufficient. Air Force, I'll also mention, and Navy are equipment high-tech oriented. It costs money. People don't realize that raising a division costs much less than buying a squadron of aircraft or the ships. So I will endorse Mr. Pirzada. Actually, he's taken the words out of my mouth that you should spend considerable time, money, and effort to build up the Navy
Right.
And because it's a high-tech and it's equipment-oriented.
Right. So your last comment, sir.
First, it's high time that Pakistan commit itself to total indigenization of naval systems in the country. Total. Because, as I said earlier, it not only gives you a powerful deterrence, home-based, homegrown deterrence, but also it opens a whole range of opportunities in the area of technologies. Those technologies can be used in any other area. But one last thing, quickly, Pakistan is threatened at the present time from a various, from various sides, and Pakistan needs every bit of deterrence, and Navy is a
Right.
very important part of it.
Sir, your very final comment, sir.
So final comment is this, that I think viewers should know, just talking to the Navy is participating in Task Force 150 and 159 continuously for many years. So 2 to 3 our surface ships are committed permanently there. That puts a lot of
Right.
strain.
I'm
on
afraid
us.
I've run out of time. So viewers, we had a very intense debate, and we have come to the conclusion with the help of our very honorable participants that the Indian threat caused by the acquisition of nuclear-powered submarines is immense, but Pakistan Navy is not sleeping, and I'm sure our defense planners are taking cognizance of how to counter this particular threat. But if the country is guided by the principles of indigenization, I'm sure, inshallah, Pakistan will be able to meet any threat head on. I would like to thank you, Admiral Ahmed Tasneem and Advocate Tariq Pirzada, for your very cogent comments. And viewers, hope to see you next week, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.